Brighton and Hove Albion 4, Manchester United 0. Normally, Janusz Michallik, I would ask you a question to begin with, but where do you want to start with this?
Oh, I thought we've said everything about this Manchester United already this season, and I was thinking to myself even early before before the all the goals that happened. I said to myself, I don't want to take pot shots at Manchester United, but you can't help it, right? I mean, it was a total capitulation. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to the club. It was embarrassing to the fans. But most importantly, Mark, I think it was embarrassing to the players. I mean, forget about the board. Forget about the owners, right? I mean, we've said everything there's to be said. Forget about the managers. Jose Mourinho has said that, right? Remember, we laughed at him when he said that was the biggest, finishing second in 2019. It was the best thing that ever happened in his career, right? We said, maybe he said it jokingly, but now looking back at this, I think you understand what he meant, right? He already knew what was coming, I suppose, during his time. So I think we have to look at these players. They didn't show up for work today. I mean, they should be fined. And speaking of those pot shots, one of the notes I wrote is, here's Brighton that hasn't won at home this calendar year, right? I mean, running around Manchester United like they were cones. And again, this is not for me, to belittle Manchester United players, but that's what it looked like often. Some of these goals, when you look at that, it was just absolutely incredible to watch how bad and inept these Manchester United players have been. So it's just a total embarrassment. And I suppose at some stage you have got to hit the bottom, and maybe it can't get any worse. But I think, Mark, these players are going to be remembered. This is the worst. I believe this is the worst season in Manchester United's history in terms of points, anyway, right? And I think
certainly in the Premier League, it's guaranteed to be the worst ever Premier League performance.
And these players are going to be remembered for that. And I think you got to show, a little bit of pride, something that we haven't seen it. They are going to be remembered, not this performance alone, but certainly here, Brighton showing that, they've had their issues in terms of scoring. They've had their issues in terms of winning at home. But here, they looked at Manchester United like many other clubs in the Premier League, saying they're just as good or bad as anybody. No fear.
Do the Manchester United players care anymore?
Well, it didn't look that way, and they should. That's why I have a massive problem with that one. But yes, we can talk about Ralf Rangnick. He probably thought he could have fixed it, and maybe he's not good enough. That's neither here or there. But, I look at these players, and Mark, you tell me, you look at first two goals, you look at somebody like Alec Telles. I mean, the first couple of goals, I mean, comical clearance header on the first one, on the second as well. You look at Dalot, I look at their fullbacks in general on the right side, Wan-Bissaka or Dalot. I don't know if you put one good one in between the two. Some of them are young, so I'm giving benefit of the doubt, right? You look on the other side, Luke Shaw, who's not here, of course. It didn't look to me like they care. I think they mailed in the season, which is incredible to me. I've mentioned the fact that they should be fined for not showing up for work. That's exactly what happens. It happens in all walks of life, and I don't make light of that, but that's just the truth. It was terrible, terrible to watch. And I think, I'm not saying that they ought to come out and apologize. Maybe they do, but I'd certainly feel a little bit for Ralf Rangnick, because, if I'm Cristiano Ronaldo, if I'm some of the other players, I would come out there first before him.
They lost 4 goals at Leicester. They lost 4 goals at Watford. They conceded 4 at Liverpool. They conceded 4 at Man City. They've now conceded 4 goals at Brighton. How did it come to this defensively?
Well, I think, it's not just defensively. I think that this is a team that's just sort of decided throughout the season that it's not their problem. The manager comes in. We've seen and we've heard that they certainly have zero respect for Ralf Rangnick. If this is true or not, this is what they're doing when they're playing games, right? You can see it on the pitch, because if you respect the manager, I think even if the manager has some shortcomings, I think you play through this, right? I mean, you have very good players there. I don't care what Cristiano Ronaldo, we can say if he fits this system or that system, he does what he's paid for. He scores goals, right? He didn't score today, but obviously does his job. If I look at somebody like Cavani, if you look at Varane, right? I mean, it's easy in hindsight to talk about, well, we could see that at Real Madrid with Varane. Yeah, maybe we could, but they've bought players. They spend a lot of money on these players, and these players, Bruno Fernandes, right? Great star, but look where he is right now. Is he a leader? I don't see it. What about Paul Pogba? He wasn't here, but we had to talk about him. There's talk about him going to Manchester City. Now, maybe with great players around him, he's a good player. But you know what that shows me? That he's not a great leader. He can only play when he has players around that are good. Fair play, you say. I've seen him for France. You have as well. He can be outstanding at Juventus at times. But he got brought up for a lot of money here. I expect a lot more from him. So there are 4, 5, or 6 players that should not allow for this to happen, for this sort of season that you've just mentioned, because this is not the first time. They've been embarrassed in a number of games today. And this is Manchester United with great, great history. It doesn't look that way.
It should be Erik 10 years, not Erik 10 Hag, because that's how long this is going to take to turn things around. This isn't a quick fix, is it?
No, it isn't. And look, I have no doubt. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have no doubt that he may be able to improve a couple players, but improve to what level, right? I mean, short of buying 5 or 6 great players, do you think that Ten Hag can come anywhere close to even competing with the likes of Liverpool or Manchester City?
But you've still got to get rid of a lot of these players. If you've accused them, and I don't think anyone can argue with you, of downing tools and not showing up for their work and not caring about the football club, then a lot of the Man United fans will want rid of a lot of these players. But they're under contract until 23, 24, 25, even 2026. You can't just bring in 10 and not get rid of any. I know there's a few going,
right.
but
I'm not saying
this is going to be something that's going to take plenty of time, is it not?
It will, but the first thing, as I've said, I mean, I think they've hit the bottom, right? And once you do, I mean, and when Ten Hag gets there, I think he has to identify the players that are not leaders, that are a big problem. And there are, because you know what you can do? You can do what Mikel Arteta has done. And we weren't sure, right? I mean, he got rid of, Ozil. He got rid of Aubameyang. And remember, we're saying, well, how do you get rid of him? They're on big contracts, right? I mean, Aubameyang was making north of 350,000 a season. So you can do it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but that's the issue. It's not the issue of necessarily how do you get rid of him, but identify the players that cause problems. Identify the players. It's easy to say they're cancer, but the players that only play when things go well. And that's the first and foremost. And there are players in that dressing room right now, because we hear all the time that the dressing room is a mess. And obviously there's zero respect for the manager. And I don't think players should be allowed to do that. It does happen. I've been part of that. I know how that goes. But at the end of the day, you still have to play your part in all of this.
Does the player that Erik Ten Hag needs to build his team around next season, is he already at Old Trafford, or does he need to be bought?
I think there's got to be some in terms of character, right? I mean, I'm assuming you're insinuating a little bit about Cristiano Ronaldo. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't know if he even wants to stay at this club. You saw him smirk a little bit today. All I know that he does what he's supposed to do. And when you have a player on a bad team like this doing his job, I've mentioned Paul Pogba. Why can't Paul Pogba do what Cristiano Ronaldo does? Just play, just do what's expected of you, right? So Cristiano Ronaldo does that. I can see him staying there if you get the proper players around him, of course, right? But I still think that in terms of character, they don't have 1 or 2 or 3 players that are like that, right? Bruno Fernandes is not one of them. Maguire hasn't shown that he's one of them. You tell me one player, if you think that's in that dressing room right now, that you can say it's absolute leader. I haven't seen it.
Well, the fact that you've been unable to give me a name suggests that person doesn't or isn't already at the football club that they can build their team around. Because who would you build Man United around next season if you were Erik Ten Hag?
It's very difficult unless, what can happen sometimes that, you obviously have to write off a season like that. And maybe a new leadership in terms of Erik Ten Hag comes in and just kind of says it to the players. Look, it can't get any worse. We're good enough here. I'll show you away. I'll show you how to play better. I'll show you how to not have games like you've mentioned, 4 or 5 games where you lose 4 or 5-0. I'll show you how to get the pride back at Old Trafford, where once again, the Old Trafford is one of those places where people fear. You can do that and leaders can emerge. There's some young players that you don't know. He may be able to improve, but yeah, I think, the bigger question is now, how do you, we keep saying that, players will come because it's Manchester United. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I don't think it's going to be that easy for sure.
Brighton is the headline, although they don't make the headlines because it'll all be Manchester United, given the size of the club and what's just happened to them. But to win 4-0, there is no Brighton fan who woke up this morning and thought to himself or herself, you know what? After 75 minutes or so, we'll be singing "We Want 5" against Manchester United. The weird thing is, and that we can shower all the praise on them, and they should have scored 5. They nearly did. They hit the post and they had another couple of chances. But the weird thing is, they've been a better side on their travels this season. So how do they ensure that this isn't a flash in the pan as a home result and get more consistency? Because they were excellent. They've got some fantastic players.
Yeah, I don't think there's a logical explanation for that, by the way.
No, there can't be.
I've seen them play, extremely well. They would have been happy with 1 or 2-0 today.
Sure.
So there isn't one. I think if you're Graham Potter, you say to yourself, no, it's no problem. We can do it. It's one of those seasons that we've played extremely well. Obviously, scoring is their issue until today, right? I mean, in general, I think they need a goal scorer that can give you maybe, 15, 20 goals consistently over the course of the season. They know that they can play. I mean, look at that one goal from Robert Sanchez in the back. Cucurella, one touch, right? And, it's just a beautiful goal. I mean, you have Moises Caicedo and Cucurella scoring their first goal in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. How happy Cucurella was. So I think they've got the players. So I think he's going to look at this game as a blueprint, say we can win at home and we can score goals, because sometimes it's a narrative alone, right? I mean, they do need a striker. There's no questions about that. But everything else they've done, I mean, they play tremendous football. They can entertain anybody, home or away. So I don't think that's an issue. I mean, they are clearly, for me, a more entertaining team than Manchester United. And if you look at the way they play and the consistency of the way they play, and I'm talking about playing well, there's not even a comparison which team is better this season, Brighton or Manchester United.
Well, it is Manchester United's worst, statistically, their worst performance in the Premier League, and will be. So to end, we have to talk about them. I'm going to give you one name. You can give me one name as someone that Erik ten Hag can build around. I'm going to give you, and forget this, oh, he won't come or he'll cost too much money. It's maybe a pipe dream or whatever, but there has been some speculation. The name I'm going to give you for Erik ten Hag to build his Man United team around next season is Frenkie de Jong. You?
I can't think of a player right now because I don't know who's going to want to play. I like Frenkie de Jong. I don't know that he is a leader just yet. I don't think that, he's a player that I think would be welcome at Manchester United. I think, we all know that maybe, just maybe, he didn't do what was advertised when he came over from Ajax to Barcelona just yet. I think he's going to need a positive season for himself. But I don't know if it's a player that you build the whole team around. I'm looking for some grit, and I'm going to have to get back to you with a name.
Okay, well, clearly issues at Manchester United. This was an embarrassing result and an embarrassing performance, but the headlines, deservedly so, should go to Brighton and Hove Albion, who win by 4-0.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.